And hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Phil at the Movies. I'm your host, Phil Walsh, and this is episode number 142 of this ongoing podcast that is, you guessed it, for the love of movies. Kind of in the tradition of last week's show where we talked about Terrifier 3. Shout out to Anthony Caruso for coming back on the show. Today, we're going to be continuing that theme, but talking about horror films of 2024. And because I like to be creative with these types of countdowns and rankings, we're going to do our top four favorite films of 2024, top four favorite horror films. So again, sort of putting everybody a little under pressure here, but that's okay. We like that. Pressure is good for the most part. But in any event, I am delighted as always to be welcoming back frequent guests to the show. Anthony DePuzzo and Nolan Ryan from the Never Split Up podcast. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. How are you doing this evening?
What's up? What's up? I'm excited. Thanks for having us on again. Excited to talk some horror movies.
I always love talking horror, so I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, no, you guys really are my go-tos when it comes to it. And again, shout out for your show. I know I've done plugs in the past, but guys, if you are fans of horror movies and just sort of general discussions of the genre, give these guys a follow and a subscribe to their YouTube channel as well as their podcast because they are, no pun intended, killing it with the horror related content. And your show is always right there in my my queue each and every time you drop an episode. So looking forward to your ranking episodes, I'm sure later this year.
Yeah,
But
thanks again, Phil. And just real quick, you guys can find us on social media at Never Split Up Pod. And again, yes, subscribe to our YouTube. We have a little goal that we set out for the end of the year. We're trying to get up to 200 subscribers. We're very close, so we would appreciate a subscribe on there. And yeah, I'm excited. This is gonna be a fun one.
I think this is the second time we have done this
Yes.
this style episode on the show. So always happy to have a tradition continued, especially at this time of year. And it's always fun to try to narrow down a list. And because, I'm sadistic that way, we're doing our top four.
You
Just
definitely
be
are.
just because again, like someone said, Phil, why top four? I said, well, it's 2024 and we're gonna do top four. No, the real
Okay, I
reason
like
is
it.
well, that's the the polite reason. Really, I'm just sadistic. I like to, really torture everybody and make them narrow it down to top four just, for the hell of it. But in any event, we're gonna have a good discussion tonight, and I'm sure there are some overlaps with, a couple of the films, but who knows? Who knows? We shall find out. We are going to have an honorable mention at the start just because it is hard to narrow these things down. This has been a great year for horror. I mean, we were talking actually offline. There's been kind of a year after year, like horror always delivers, whereas other genres, it can sometimes be a hit or a miss. But like we were saying, 2023, 2022, like straight through, like horror always is on point. And I guess, being fans of the genre, that's okay with us.
Hell yeah. Horror's always gonna be king, so
Amen to that. Amen to that. Again, for those watching the show on YouTube, you can certainly see by the backgrounds of Nolan and Anthony that these guys, there's no BS here. These are horror aficionados. So that's all serious credentials here. But all right, so the way this is going to work, everybody, we're going to start off with our honorable mentions and then proceed into our top four, going from four to the number one spot. And Anthony, why don't you kick it off, and then we'll go to Nolan, and then myself, and then we'll just
all
keep
right.
going around in a in a circle and until we get to number one. So, Anthony, what is your first honorable mention, or
Okay.
your only honorable
I
mention?
know
Well,
you're
I know I'm terrible, but
you're killing me.
I
No,
know.
I wish I could have endless honorable mentions, but I told you guys off camera I'm gonna pick a fun one. So my honorable mention's gonna be Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh.
I am obsessed with this quirky, weird horror comedy, and of course, the hardcore horror guy is picking like a comedy as his honorable mention. But I was actually surprised at how dark it went, and I think Catherine Newton is such an underrated horror actress. She doesn't get the credit she deserves. She's a little horror scream queen in the shadows. If you don't talk about her enough, and
Mm.
she kills it in this role. I was obsessed with just how weird it is. I like weird, and it's so weird. It's so fun, and it goes in pretty dark places. Like there's some deaths in this movie. I'm like, okay. I like it. I love it. I just love how it's fun. I love the Tim Burton-esque vibe of it. I love the animation sequence. I just think that it surprised me. I didn't get to see it in theaters, and when I watched it at home, I'm like, God damn, this movie is very special. And it stuck with me all year. I've watched it a few times, and every time I'm like, I find so much to love about it. The style is off the charts. It's just a fun, great movie, and I love Diablo Cody, and she wrote this one. It just has that fun, quirky vibe. It has that Jennifer's Body kind of like humor with language. Like, the dialogue is awesome, and Catherine Newton just freaking kills it. So yeah, I love Lisa Frankenstein, so I wanted to give her a little shout out.
I love that. It's a great film. I actually
So
rewatched it
good.
recently too, and it's very Tim Burton-esque. It's it's horny, it's weird,
It's exact. That's
it's
why I love it.
dark.
It's
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
it's really. I wish it got more love in theaters because it is a gem.
No, yeah, it's gonna have a cult classic following for sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. How about you, Nolan?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna be in the same vein as Ant, actually. I'm gonna do another Catherine Newton movie, another fun one.
Oh,
Abigail, directed by Radio Silence. Super fun. Oh, and guys, just for context, this isn't my number five. We talked before we started recording. Me and Ant are going to do a top 10 later in the year. So I didn't want to spoil my number five. So I just kind of picked a random one. I think, Ant, you did too.
yeah.
So this isn't necessarily my number five, but this is still a really fun movie. And Catherine Newton steals the show once again. And this one, she doesn't have the leading role like she does in Lisa
Mhm.
Frankenstein. But if you watch it, some of her iconic, I don't want to spoil the movie, but some of her most iconic scenes in that movie happen, you know, towards the middle of the movie. Not to spoil too much, but yeah, this was just fun. I love Radio Silence, Tyler and Matt. I feel like their humor just strikes a chord with me, and their writing is just so funny. I Melissa Barrera as a leading lady is awesome as the final girl. She's great. It has a stacked cast. I'm not gonna, the late
Mhm.
great Angus Cloud is in it.
Mm.
Alicia Weir steals the show in all of her scenes. She plays the little girl Abigail. She is really good, and it's got other actors too. But yeah, this was a really fun one, and I'm gonna go back to this one a lot. It's just fun to throw on, and the kills are great. It's funny, it's humorous, and it's got vampires, and I love vampires, so can't go wrong with that.
No, you could not. I have to say, I saw this one back whenever it came out. Was it March or April? And I was sort of
April, I think.
mixed on it when I first saw it. I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know if it wasn't what I was expecting or what, but I have rewatched it recently, and I can say that my opinion of it has changed for the better. Like you sort of have to just take it for what it is, and I think maybe that was part of my issue. I don't know. I figured it was like going to be more of a throwback to like the 1930s or even like a Dracula's a daughter or something. And obviously those elements are in the film, but it is a wild ride. It is a wild ride, and yeah, again, Catherine Newton is always great, and of course Melissa Barrera. So yeah, no, very good, very good. So yeah, two very unique picks there. I like it.
Fun,
So
they're fun.
yeah, no,
They're
absolutely.
fun.
Starting off lighthearted.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, this one is, I mean, I guess in a way it's kind of lighthearted, but it's definitely a little more on the darker end. The film is What You Wish For, and it stars Nick Stahl, who plays a guy who's kind of down in his luck. He's got some gambling debts, and he decides to go and fill in for his friend, who is this chef for sort of the wealthy and the elite and the powerful on this like secluded island paradise. And he discovers very soon after working there that the menu request for the guest is not the usual fare. This is not steak and potatoes crowd, shall we say. Human remains are on the menu, and it's it's on the one hand, it's sort of a a dark, campy film just because they sort of play a little bit for laughs, but then when it turns, it really turns and it gets very, very grim, particularly once the character Ryan realizes that he's sort of in this, almost like this cult that where they just want to, feast on human bodies and human remains, and basically he's tasked with preparing these exquisite meals and five course dishes all centered around, well, we'll use this person's tongue and this person's brain. I mean, it was really just bizarre and wacky and weird and dark, and I just absolutely loved it.
Another weird, disturbing one that I highly recommend. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I
But
have to
go
put
into it
that.
if you haven't watched it. Yeah, go into it knowing like as little as possible because that's the fun of it.
No,
I
seriously.
I did see some discussion on it. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm excited to. I'm going to put that towards the top of my watch list now. That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
It's a very
definitely.
good pick, Phil. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely go in as blind as possible because yeah, it definitely there's some unique turns with it. All right, so
Cool.
I think we have set the table, so to speak. We've gotten our fun, dark, honorable mentions out of the way. So, Anthony, why don't you kick us off now? We're going number 4-1. Let's I know, pressure is mounting, but
All right.
the ball is in your court, buddy.
All right. So it took me forever to decide what was my number four. I was really between three movies, but I'm going for it. My number four is going to be Terrifier 3. Um, I mean, I'm just so happy that we have slashers back in the theater and we have a slasher franchise that's just so unabashedly over the top and dark and bloody as fuck and not concerned with any censorship. It's going for it. And Terrifier 3, I think, takes it to the next level. There's some scenes in that movie where I'm like, whoa, 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 what am I watching here? But that's why I love Terrifier. And it's mixed with holiday slasher vibes, so it just gets me going. The opening scene is one of my favorite opening scenes in the entire year. It cracks me up, but it's also really scary. Um, I have issues with this movie, but it doesn't take away that it's just art doing his art thing. And he has a sidekick, Victoria's in this one, and she almost, in my opinion, in some scenes steals the show from Art because that's how dark and sadistic she is. And now there were some scenes with her, I'm like, ooh, am I gonna look away? There's one scene where she does something to herself. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing this right now. But I love Lauren Rivera as Sienna. Just funny enough, like everyone's raving over the finale of this movie, and this movie, actually, the finale is my least favorite part of the movie. I have issue when like Terrifier 2 when I went to fantasy, that's where I'm like, that's why I appreciate the first one so much. It's just simplistic and bare bones, and art is just going around killing people and taking names. And I do think the fantastical elements kind of take away from what Terrifier started out as a little bit. And I think it takes away from our final goal a little bit too. Like I love that Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street can defeat this otherworldly being just because she is an everyday woman and she's not doesn't have this, shield and superpowers or whatever. But overall, I love it so much. It's bloody, bloody, bloody. It's just slasher overload, and slasher's my favorite subgenre, and I'm so happy that we have Terrifier movies released nationwide in theaters. And I mean, this one's the highest grossing non-rated movie of all time now, and we're gonna get Terrifier 4. He's gonna push boundaries even more. So I'm always gonna champion a movie that pushes boundaries, whether it's for people or not. It's for me because I like when people take risks, and I like that we have another iconic slasher horror villain that's going to be up there with Michael, Jason, Freddy, Ghostface. Art's making a name for himself. He is the villain of the 2020s, like it or not. So, yeah, I love Terrifier 3. I don't know how to rank this trilogy, but I love Terrifier 3 so much. So, yeah, it's going to be my number four.
Love it. I have to say, mad respect for Damon Leone for sticking to his guns. And I said this
Hmm.
last week on the show. He could have cashed out. He could have handed this over to a studio. Any major studio in Hollywood, even after the success of the second one, would have taken this franchise, but it would have lost what
Yeah.
makes this character so compelling. I mean, he has to be dark. He has to be twisted. It has to be gore cranked up to 110. And yeah, again, no studio would release Terrifier 3, let alone 2 and 1, especially an unrated version. So
Oh yeah.
I love that these movies exist. This third one really brought me around on Art the Clown, and I think partly because it's a great time for the genre. It is kind of a throwback to a lot of the 80s and sort of
Mhm.
the heyday of the slasher film, but also horror Christmas movies are a lot of fun. Like more of them, please.
Yes. Yeah, wow. Starting with a bang, Ant. So we saw this together.
Oh,
When I
nice,
remember we
nice.
left the theater and we were kind of discussing. So it's interesting to see it made your top four. That's really cool. It's really awesome. I love Terrifier as well. That's a solid pick. I actually have to disagree with Ant. I actually like the fantasy aspects of it. I think that's what kind of differentiates the franchise in terms of slashers and especially Sienna's character, how she has the magical sword and stuff. I'm a fantasy guy. I know, Ant, you're
Mhm.
not really a
Yeah,
fantasy
no,
guy,
yeah.
so it makes sense why you wouldn't really be into that. But that's
Mhm.
actually one of the things I like about two and three specifically. But yeah, no, that's great. I still have to digest this movie. I mean, I have to see it a second time. I only saw it the one time with you, Anthony. It was different than what I thought it was going to be. I was anticipating Damien Leone to kind of dive into the whole Sienna being the ultimate final girl. And we really, like you said, you touched on it, Ant, we really didn't get too much of that. I still
Yeah.
think Terrifier 2 is Sienna's movie. But on the flip side, it did focus on Art. I mean, Art was the main character. The whole pretty much the whole movie. I mean, you get to see way more of Art's personality, and I'm a villain guy, so I love that. So I really want to watch this a second time just to kind of digest it all now that I know what I'm getting. But yeah, that's a great pick, solid pick. I'm really happy it made your top four.
Very
Keep the
nice.
slashers going.
Oh
Amen to that, buddy.
yeah.
Amen to that.
Okay, I'm next.
Nolan, you're up.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
here we go.
All righty, let's see.
I am.
Let's hear.
I think this is going to be a surprise, especially to at least one of you. My number four is Lisa Frankenstein,
Oh,
directed
hell
by
yeah. I'd see.
Zelda Williams.
Wow,
Okay.
Yeah,
love it, love
I
it.
did not think
I
this would be on either of your lists, so that's
yeah, I
awesome.
Wow.
know you said that before, and
Damn,
I
that's
was like,
great.
oh man, Lisa. Okay, this movie, like you said, it's not very scary. It's a horror comedy. It's a genre film, but it is such a comfort film for me. I remember when I first watched this. Well, I didn't see it in theaters either, unfortunately, but I remember watching it at home for the first time and instantly knowing just from the aesthetic and the '80s vibes that this was going to be a movie I'm going to throw on countless times over the coming years, and it's going to be a comfort film for me. Like you said, Catherine Newton is one of my favorite working actresses in the horror genre right now. She is amazing and delivers this character beautifully. Lisa Frankenstein, the character, is zany and just unpredictable. And then you have her paired with Cole Sprouse's character, the undead zombie guy. I don't even know if he has a official name. I can't remember his
I don't
name.
think he does.
I
What
don't,
he's
yeah.
credited as, but they work so beautifully together, even though he doesn't talk for 99% of the movie. I think they're a great, you know, couple. You have the great Carla Gugino who's in it. She's amazing. Fans of the horror genre
He's
will
so good.
recognize her. She's so good in a role. It's just that, like I said, it's just a comfort film for me, and it might be my like most rewatchable film in terms of the top horror films from 2024, just because Zelda Williams and whoever the cinematographer was, I don't have it offhand, just nailed the aesthetic. And this is a great feature length debut for Zelda Williams. I'm really happy. You mentioned, Ant, that Diablo Cody wrote this movie. Big fan of Diablo Cody, and shout out to Jennifer's Body. I know it
Oh
was
yeah.
confirmed. I know it was confirmed that they're in the same universe, which is really
Yeah,
cool. It's
yeah.
a really cool Easter egg. I doubt they're going to do anything with that, but it's just
They
kind of
should
like a
though.
cool little nod that they're in the same universe. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I really, really adore this movie. It's not scary by any means, but if you're a longtime fan of horror and you haven't checked this one out, it's a nice little movie that's really fun. And like you said, it goes there a couple times. It's got some gore, it's got some special effects, and yeah, it does everything right for me. And I'm really happy that this movie exists.
I love that it's on your list. That's awesome.
No, I love that Lisa Frankenstein is getting a lot of love. It deserves much more, and I think you're right, Anthony. You said it best. It's going to be a cult classic in the years ahead. So, no, that's great. I'm all for that. All right, so number four for me, starting off this list, number four is Late Night with the Devil. This movie, I remember there was a lot of hype and sort of intrigue around it, and I thought, all right, it's kind of a unique concept, late night talk show host interviewing supposedly a possessed girl. Like we'll see what happens. Well, this is one of those movies where I went into it thinking I'll probably enjoy this, and I walked out thinking, "Oh my God, this is a tour de force. I love this movie." And it really is, I think, entirely thanks to David Dastmalchian, who kills it in this film. I mean, he's always turns in great performances. He's really more of a character actor, more of a side role in a lot of films. I think back to, just because it's top of mind, Prisoners, which he has a small part in. But this is his movie. Like he is front and center, and he owns it. Like he just comes across as like a late 70s talk show. It's very, sleazy but charismatic at the same time. I love that they have that aesthetic where it does look like you're watching something from 1977 or 1978, all the way down to the look of the set with the commercial breaks and sort of then the behind the scenes, um, you know, situation that was going on, and they shoot that in black and white. I thought that was a nice sort of trick to differentiate between what was supposed to be the live broadcast and what was going on actually behind the scenes while they weren't taping. But I mean, this movie, we're sort of been hinting around it with the other films about movies that just sort of go there, and this movie goes there. One, I thought the whole sort of backstory about the price of fame and what Jack is willing to do in order to get where he ultimately ends up as this sort of legendary talk show host, that I thought was really incredible. I sort of like the tying into like the Bohemian Grove conspiracy theories and stuff like that, but just the whole sort of presence when you're sort of summoning the devil, and like, I mean, the little girl, I don't have her name offhand, but I mean, that was some really frightening shit. Like, I mean, I remember just sitting there saying, like, wow, this is leaving me unnerved. I mean, again, just the way in which the camera operates, and again, just the reactions of course, Jack and everybody on that set. It's like, it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And it's definitely an ominous film. Like, it doesn't end on a happy note. I won't spoil it in case anyone hasn't seen it, but I don't know, just in terms of being a kind of out of the box creative film, I thought this was such a bold take on like the possession, demon summer, conjuring subgenre, with sort of the trappings and aesthetic of a late show in the 1970s. So I'm a big fan of this film. I have already rewatched it, I think, three times already this year since it came out. It's right behind me in the on the steel book. So like, I've got my street cred when it comes to Late Night with the Devil. But yeah, big fan of this film. And I mean, not only I think it's a sort of a kind of a strong horror film for the year, I would also put it as one of the year's best films, just from just the performance level to just the creativity behind it. I was really impressed with it.
That's great. Me and Ant were smiling the whole time. So, for context, this was one of our more memorable episodes this year. We covered Late Night with the Devil earlier this year, and we have very different opinions on this movie. So,
I know.
spoiler alert for that episode, but I really enjoyed the movie, much like Phil, and Ant not so much. So, we were kind of giving each other, I think, looks during that, and we were smiling. So, yeah, no, for sure. Great movie. Talk about, like you said, the aesthetic and how they nailed that 70s late night show vibe. I allowed myself the first time I watched this movie to kind of just get sucked into that world
Mhm.
and not be so, sometimes I go into a movie and I do admit that I do get a little bit too critical and I look for things that are,
Right.
because I watch so many movies. But this time I was able to just like kind of relax and enjoy the movie and just like really buy into the whole premise. And it's so easy to do because they just nail it from top to bottom. David Desmalkin, give him all the awards, all the flowers. He was born for this role almost. I mean, I almost think that he should be a real late night host. That's how good he played this role. It just amazing. It's not a perfect movie, and me and Ant, we did discuss that in our episode. I do think the ending is a little underwhelming, but it doesn't bother me because everything else is so perfect. Like you said, Phil, the suspense leading up to the possession scene and everything was genuinely creepy. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it kind of left me on the edge of my seat. So yeah, totally agree that this was a great film for 2024.
Wah, wah. No, I'm just kidding. I like Late Night with the Devil. I gave it like the mid sixes, but I do have a lot of problems with it. I wish it had the effect on me that it had for you two. But I think the best thing this movie did was for David Dismalchin and finally catapulted him to leading
Mhm.
man status. So I'm thankful for it in that aspect. And I'll give it a rewatch and see if it moves up. But yeah, for now it's just I like it.
We'll get
All
you over
right.
to our side eventually.
All right, let's go. Let's hear it, Ant. Number three.
All right, number three. My number three. Okay, you ready, guys?
Yes.
Um, all right, there she is, the almost birthday girl. It's Longlegs. My number three is Longlegs. Um, I love Osgood Perkins. I know people are hit or miss with him because it's a little, it's either for you or it's not. But I think that what he did with Longlegs is he created a mystery in the vein of Silence of the Lambs and Seven, but he also wasn't afraid to just be like, it's gonna be wacky and it's gonna have humor and you're gonna laugh at it in a nervous way. You might be on edge, but you're also laughing at it because it's funny. And I just have a blast with this movie. I mean, Micah Monroe, we talked about Catherine Newton. Micah Monroe is, to my opinion, the modern horror scream queen. I can list her credits, but she has been killing it. I've been watching her since It Follows, and she's been killing it, and she's stayed within the horror genre since then, so I love her so much. Nicolas Cage is doing his Nicolas Cage thing, and I think that he was sprinkled throughout the movie at just the right moments because if it was too much, it was already like humorous and funny, like I was laughing at it at certain points, but it could have gone into complete absurdity and taken away from the tone of the dark mystery vibe. So he was sprinkled in just enough. I think he should get supporting actor nomination, but we know what happens with horror. Um, but I do, Blair Underwood's always great. I loved him being a partner with Micah Monroe. And I just want to say, Micah Monroe, she played her character so well. She didn't go over the top. She didn't have to
Mm.
go over the top or go far with anything. Just her facial expressions and just everything she did. She played it so well. It's like, wow, I'm on her team. I'm ready for the ride. But my favorite shout out I want to give because everyone's talking about Micah Monroe, Nicolas Cage is Alicia Witt. To me, she stole every scene that she was in this movie, and I don't want to say too much. I mean, I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen the movie, but every scene she's in, to me, my eyes just gravitated towards her. She knocks it out of the park. Love her. She was, the final girl in Urban Legend, but she just kills it in this movie. And I just think that the pacing is so well. It builds and builds and builds, and you have this one scene, and you're like, okay, this is it. But like, no, there's still another 10 minutes to go,
Mm.
and we have something else to find out. But it's just Osgood Perkins doing his thing, and I think the cinematography is probably some of the best of the year, horror, not horror. I love the score. I love the tension building. I just love that. I love how much of an event it was too. If you remember the lead up to the movie, everyone was like, "Oh my God, what's this marketing? What's that?" I saw it in a packed house on a
Mm.
Thursday night preview for a neon horror movie. And when you have a company doing that, you're bringing the mass audiences into this like artistic indie film. I mean, they have to be doing something, right? So yeah, I really, really, really enjoyed Longlegs. I loved it so much. I've seen it a few times, and I've showed some people it. It's funny seeing some people react in like disgust and disturbed by certain scenes, and other people are just laughing. But to me, that's the great thing about it. I love both of them, and I find myself some scenes I'm like, oh, this is messed up, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking hilarious. But so yeah, I love Long Legs. I'll be rewatching it a lot, and I think it's a perfect blend of Silence of the Lambs and Seven mixed with some dark humor, and it's a great movie.
Unsettled laughter for sure. Yeah, that's
Oh
pretty
yeah.
much two words I would describe this movie. I really, really, really wish I didn't get to see this movie in theaters. I didn't get to see a
Oh
lot of movies in theaters this year. I really wish I could see this movie in theaters, and I didn't wait to see it because pretty much, I mean, Twitter was going crazy over this movie after it came out. At least my, followers were.
yeah.
I didn't see it until it came to, digital, and by then almost the entire movie was spoiled for me, unfortunately. So,
Aw.
and I've only seen this movie once, so it's not on my top four, but it is very solid. There's really nothing there's no notes. I mean, like you said, the whole cast just nails it. The cinematography is beautiful. It's a slow build, and it's got those levity breaks that make you laugh, but you're still like very unsettled. Question, Ant, real quick before Phil comments. Did it like work for you like it did for others? Like, were you getting those like creepy, like disgusting, unsettling vibes when you were watching this movie? Because you saw it opening
Yeah.
night. So how did you feel watching that, knowing nothing going in?
I got the creepy vibes, but I wasn't like I mean, there was some like disturbing imagery, but I
Yeah.
wasn't like disgusted by anything. And I was one of the people who like I'm like the freak who's like smiling and like
Yeah.
giggling,
Yeah.
like everyone else. But I like that like because the audience I was in, there were some people who were like this, and other people who were just like, this is fucking hilarious. So it's like everyone had different reactions, but that's what I love about it. And my birthday is also the 14th, so I'm like, ooh, he's gonna
Ooh,
come get me. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I can't wait to watch this again, especially the ending. That third act is just
Oh yeah.
so awesome. And like you said, Alicia Witt steals the show.
Oh,
She is awesome in it. Yeah.
I will save my thoughts for.
I know you
I will
will.
just say this because you mentioned Oz Perkins. I think this is his most accessible film
Okay.
Yeah.
for a general audience. Because again, some of his movies, like I would say he's probably an acquired taste for. I mean, horror fans aside, I think for the GA, sometimes he probably would be more of an acquired taste. But this, I think, would be his most accessible mainstream film.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
I will say, yeah.
Definitely because you have Silence of the Lambs and movies like
Yeah,
Seven to kind of go back to that are
right.
in the mainstream. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And I will say, spoiler alert, we haven't covered any of his movies yet, but it's not my favorite one. And there's one that's, to me, even more unsettling and dark in this. If you haven't seen The Black Coast Daughter, do
Mhm.
yourself a favor and go watch that immediately. That's a fucked up movie.
Amen to that.
Okay, I'm up
Dylan,
next.
you're
Top
you're
three.
next.
All
You're
All
right.
next.
right,
I
here
know.
we
Here we
go.
go.
Okay, number three for me is going to be The Substance, directed by Coralie Fargo. Uh, holy shit. Holy shit. I talk about a masterpiece. Now we're getting into, I mean, this was a really strong year for horror. My top three are all masterpieces, but this movie may be technically the best movie on my list, on my top four. It's not my personal favorite, but there's really nothing I can critique about this movie. It is the themes, the message was beautiful. It talks about, aging in Hollywood and being in the limelight and dealing with, your insecurities, especially as you age. It stars Demi Moore, who puts on an unbelievable performance. I mean, she hasn't really been in the public eye in a while, and she just came out and just did this movie. And I was like, I remember when I first saw people talking about this movie, I'm like, oh, Demi Moore is in a movie and it's being talked about. That's awesome. And then I watched it and I was like, she is in the movie. That's for sure. We got Margaret Qualley who nails it. She steals the show as well. I wouldn't really call her the lead. I know a lot of people are calling her the lead. I would call Demi Moore the lead
Oh,
because
for
she was
sure.
in the entire movie. Margaret Qualley kind of comes in the second act, but you have her who just steals the show. Dennis Quaid is maybe like the most sinister villain in the entire year. He is the most disgusting guy imaginable. That scene where they're at the
Oh,
restaurant. Oh my God. That was maybe the most
Nasty.
uncomfortable I've
Nasty.
been watching a movie. But yeah, I love this movie so much. For those of you that haven't seen it, it is a body horror movie. It deals with that, and it goes there. The ending surprised me, and this is someone who I love gory. I love violence. I body horror isn't my favorite subgenre, but I do like it. And I saw people talking about the ending before I watched it, and I was still blown away. I was blown away that it even went there. The amount of gore and blood, and then even Margaret Qualley's character, her descent into what she eventually becomes, not to spoil too much, is just so well done. But you kind of have the two sides of it, right? You have the first act or two where it's really focused on Demi Moore, and it's a really a tragic story, and you can tell because you know as soon as she takes the substance, I mean, it's all downhill. I mean, nobody they made it pretty clear that nobody taking the substance is going to respect the balance. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the
Right.
film. So it's a really sad kind of story, and then it turns into this just chaos that you're just kind of, at least me, I was grinning from ear to ear by the end of it. I was like, holy shit, this is just incredible. But I love this movie. I can't wait to watch it over and over again and pick out new things. I think it's just great. I love it so much.
Well,
Again,
oh yeah.
I'll hold
You're gonna
my
hold.
I hold my thoughts, but no,
Uh,
I'm so glad this movie exists. I really am. I'm so glad this movie exists. And
well,
yeah,
yeah, it's great. I'll just say give Demi Moore her Academy Award
Oh,
nomination as
yes,
well.
please, please,
honestly,
please,
yes. I
Um,
mean, it on.
come on.
I would love
please.
for a number of horror films to take it this year, but if I had to narrow it to one, give it to her. Give it
Give it
to
to
her.
her. And I mean,
Yep.
I think she's got a real chance with a
She
movie like
does.
The Substance, even though it's
Yeah.
horror. I mean, it's it's got a French director, so they have that going for them.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's got
It
enough
does.
of
It
that
checks the box.
artsy
Yeah.
feel to it for
Yeah.
the Oscars. So
Well,
we'll see.
no, fingers crossed, honestly, because this one, yeah, it's well,
It
I'll
is
save my
it's
thoughts.
you're nice.
It's,
It's just I like when you said that you like it just delves into chaos and the reason why I love this movie is first of all we have it's 2 hours and 20 minutes and at least in my opinion I didn't feel that runtime. It just was like I'm like so absorbed in all of it.
Mm,
And I just like that this movie is obviously a message movie, but it's still a horror movie first. So you can
right.
watch it as just this crazy over the top trashy, pulpy B movie, and it doesn't abandon. It knows it's a B movie, and it thrives in that. So it doesn't abandon that to be this pretentious message movie with a horror movie attached to it. It's obviously the inverse. It's
Hmm.
a horror movie. It's trashy B movie, crazy, over the top shenanigans, camp at the. I mean, The Last Shot is pure camp, but it has a message attached to it. It's not worried about. And I love A24 and Neon and all these movies that are, they're a little bit pretentious. I love those too, but this movie is not that. It knows it's a B movie, but it has an important message attached to it, and that's why I appreciate it. I mean, the one scene with Demi Moore, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but she's getting prepared to go out to dinner, and it broke my
Hmm.
heart. Like this is a crazy B movie, but that one scene, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get a tear in my eye because of what this woman, is viewing herself. First of all, Demi Moore is one of the most beautiful women, 60-year-old woman alive, and she's going through this, and it's just that acting in that sequence. That's the one I would submit. She's so damn good,
Hmm.
and it's just a fun movie too. You don't have to watch it for the message. You can just watch it as this wacky body horror, like no one said. But there's also things to take from it on top of it. And I also think the sound design is next level in this
Mm.
movie. It's amazing. And I just love the colorfulness with the transition from her scenes versus Margaret's scene. It's just so well done. So yeah, this is a really, really, really expertly directed movie. I love it so much.
So for me, this is where it gets very interesting because I originally had this film, let me say, it was closer to the top two, but after really kind of thinking about it and reshuffling the list, so to speak, I had to move it back. So number three for me is Heretic, and
Ooh.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
this film again, it in many ways it shouldn't work as well as it does because the plot of it is relatively straightforward. Again, covered it on the show a few weeks ago, but it's essentially about a creepy guy who's got his own issues and reasons for holding these two young missionaries hostage in his home and kind of all the hidden back doors and traps that he has set and waiting for them. But what elevates this film above just sort of a run of the mill locked in a house horror movie is Hugh Grant. He like this is another performance that I would say is right up there with worthy of being in consideration for an Academy Award nomination at the least, because it's not like he's wearing prosthetics. It's not like he's, acting like a monster necessarily, though he is monstrous. He's just a creepy guy. And he comes off as Hugh Grant at the start. He's very charming and awkward and charismatic. But when he turns, and it's that scene right when they go into his essentially like cathedral or altar library, and he gives them this sort of lecture on religion, and he breaks it down by using the variations on Monopoly, which that was a stroke of genius in and of itself. But he's a real creepy SOB. Like, this guy, again, it's Hugh Grant. We've seen him in dozens of movies. He's always, charming and funny and whatnot. But he's using all of those skills here, but he's cranking it up in a different way where he sort of draws you in because he just has that natural charm and charisma. But then when he turns, it's like holy shit, this guy is a monster, and he looks like your next door neighbor. Like it's that sort of trappings mixed with just sort of a unique take on sort of the locked in the house premise. And I have to give a shout out to both Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, because they're relative newcomers for the most part, but they're going toe to toe with a legend like Hugh Grant, particularly Chloe East, who kind of gets the most screen time with him, and her being sort of the more innocent of the two missionaries. She has a real good character arc in this film. And I don't know, just everything from the sound design to the look of this film to, again, just Hugh Grant's anchoring performance. I was blown away by this film. I enjoyed it much more than I expected I would. Again, being a fan of Hugh Grant, but it's his performance that just elevates this into something that is, I probably even better than what's on the page. Like, it's hard to see any other actor take on this role. It really feels like it was tailor made for him. And I'm looking forward to revisiting this multiple times, because it just, again, it's definitely dark and it's unsettling, but it's twisted in the best possible way, and I love it.
Whew. What a good pick. This is such a good year for horror. That
Amen to
that's a
that.
great pick. That's a great pick. I did see this in theaters. I was able to see this in theaters. I was really looking forward to this. And I totally agree, Phil. This movie, they just knocked it out of the park. It doesn't have as big a scope as some other movies, like you said, Phil, but it shouldn't work as good as it does, but it really does. And everyone's going to talk about Hugh Grant. I co-sign with him. I also co-sign with Chloe East. I really think she went toe to toe with him, like you said. I think that she played that. You said she was kind of more of the innocent of the two. I think that was a great angle for her ultimate ascension into final girl status in this movie. How she is that innocent girl, but she is resourceful and she can think on her feet quite literally. She thinks on her feet and she goes toe to toe mentally with Hugh Grant's character, Mr. Reed. I think this movie, the writing was good because I really didn't see which direction this movie was going. Every time they went in a different direction, I was genuinely like, "Oh, cool! This is a cool direction." So I know I've seen some things about the ending that people didn't love, like how it ended up. I disagree. I don't think it could have ended really any other way. I didn't want it to go too much into the supernatural or anything. I
Yeah.
think that was not needed and it would have gotten way too hokey. I think this was a brilliant film and it just was an acting showcase from all three. Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East. It was just them three. And then shout out to Topher Grace, made a little cameo appearance. He was, I wish he got a little bit more screen time. Maybe he came back to the house, but other than that, I have no notes. This was a phenomenal film and I can't wait to watch this again. Seeing this in theaters, I'm really glad I did.
Well, I have to say, I love the twist that happens where he shows up, and you immediately think, that's a great point, Nolan, about the writing in this film. It is a very smart script, but like you think, oh, he's going to see the bikes or something is going to happen after he pays the visit to Mr. Reed, and then he turns around, goes back, and you think something, he's going to be the hero or save the day. Do you have time to talk about the Church of Latter-day
Yeah,
Saints? And he pulls
it's
out the
brilliant.
pamphlet. Yeah,
They play with us as the audience because we're sitting here thinking this is the typical, guy goes to try to save the girls and then he ends up being the first death of the
exactly.
movie. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
predictable, but they flip it on its head, and it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw this movie a few days ago finally, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was excellent. I love a good cat and mouse movie, and ooh, Hugh Grant, the cat and mouse games he plays on these two girls is next level. But I also love that they don't succumb to his manipulation. They are fighters, and they both try. No,
Hmm.
I'm not going to get to the outcomes, but they both do their thing and they try their best. And I just love a movie that gets people coming out with two different takes or like how they're gonna. Because I texted Nolan after I saw it, and I didn't tell him because we're gonna talk about it one day. But we both have different interpretations of the ending, so
Mm,
that's something that I think is really awesome. And I just think that a movie that is about like questioning everything,
mm.
the way it plays out is so smart, and it has you questioning everything, and you should be questioning things that this questions these movies that this movie's asking you, but. Hugh Grant is just such a menacing villain. I loved it so much. And I just love that layout of the house. I'm like, where else are we gonna go? Like, man, he really must have a connection from not getting the checkups on this house. It's crazy. But I love this movie so much. It's well shot, perfectly acted, tightly written, and the execution was just next level. And I really think we should do an episode on it so we can all talk about our interpretations of what's going on with that ending and what's going on with the movie.
Oh, I have
Yeah,
thoughts. I
for
have
sure.
I
thoughts.
do too.
Well, real quick, before we move on, I that was great that you touched on that and how it kind of um, it balances everything. I think this movie toes the line perfectly with I mean, obviously the movie's called Heretic. It deals with religious themes heavily. I mean, that's the whole point of the movie. You have these Mormons against this guy who's essentially an atheist. Um, and I don't think they went one side or the other. They didn't lean one way or the other. So if you're someone who is religious and you want to see
Mm.
this movie, you can get something out of it. And then if you're someone who isn't, you can get something out of it because all the characters, like you said, Ant, the two women in the movie, they don't back down and they do question and challenge Hugh Grant's character throughout the whole movie. So it isn't leaning one side or the other. I
Mhm.
think that was one of the more awesome parts of this script because everyone can enjoy this movie, whether you're religious or not, because it has something for everyone.
No, well
Agreed
said.
100%.
Well said. Plus, you also get Hugh Grant doing a Jar Jar Binks impression, which
Yes,
that
yes,
was,
yes,
yeah, that
yes.
that was
Jar
almost worth the price of
Jar.
admission right
As
there.
soon it was 5 stars on Letterboxd as soon as I heard that. Yeah.
But yeah, I fucking love that movie. So I'm so happy I finally got to see it in the theater. I'm like, I'm making it before it comes out of the theater.
Very good. No,
So,
no, it's
all
definitely
right.
worth it.
All right, top two.
It.
Whoo wee.
Nah.
All right. My number two is, in my opinion, so damn good. It is The First Omen is my number two. It is one of the best horror prequels ever made. I'm fucking obsessed with this movie so much. I was really bummed because when I saw like all the marketing, I'm like, Disney, you're just dumping it. Like, what are you doing? Like the trailer, like nothing was enticing me. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go. It's gonna be a half-assed like Omen ripoff. And I saw, I'm like, holy shit, this movie went hard. It's the best Omen movie since the first two movies. And the imagery in this movie, it goes there, and it's not afraid to go there. I'm like, damn, I'm watching like Disney allowed this movie to be made. I'm like, okay. I talk shit about Disney, but I'm like, okay, okay. I'm about this one. I just think that for a directorial debut, I need to shout out the director, Arkasha Stevenson. She is just an expert behind the camera. Her camera work is so damn good. She knows how to hold a shot. She knows how to do a set piece. And I'm not can't rave enough about No Tiger Free, another one. Demi Moore is more likely, but I think No Tiger Free should be in that conversation. She absolutely kills it. There's certain scenes where I'm like, how is she doing this? What's going on? I'm not a Star Wars guy, but people are saying this is like the Rogue One of prequels, and I mean, I'm assuming that Rogue One was really well received. So this one I think is just
Okay.
next
Weird.
level. Next, yeah, people are saying I
That's
keep
a weird
all the
comparison,
reviews.
but I get
I'm
it,
like,
yeah.
I'm like Rogue One. I'm like, okay, but I guess that was a good prequel for the Star Wars. I don't know. I don't watch Star Wars, but
Yeah.
um, I think that just the execution of this movie, it goes to places where I'm like, ooh. I did not think that we were going to go there. And I think I know Phil, you don't agree, but I do think that this is the better religious horror out of this and Immaculate of the year. I think this one just blows it out of the water. I do love Immaculate too, but this one just takes it up a notch because it has the supernatural and religious themes that goes a little bit into the supernatural realm where Immaculate is more based in reality. But there, I don't want to, I know people, I'm sure you've seen it, but there's certain scenes, especially when you get towards the halfway point, I'm like, Whew. I mean, there's a scene where something comes out of something, and I'm just like, what am I watching? It's just insanity. I show my parents, like, what the fuck are you showing me? But yeah, I mean, and there's a scene at the end too when it ties into the original Omen film, and when that score kicks in the theater, I got my hairs on my arms were standing up, very much like they were in Doctor Sleep when they went back to the Overlook. I had this same sort of feeling as I did with that movie. So yeah, this movie to me it didn't it kind of went under the radar a little bit, but when you see people now I see online, when they see it, they're like, damn, the first Omen goes hard and it's one of the best of the year. So I just want to give it some love. It's my number two. It was my number one for forever for the year, but it just missed it out on it. But yeah, watch this movie, guys. It's excellent. It's a messed up religious horror movie, and it does not afraid to go there. And if you like the Omen franchise, this one has to go top of your list to must watch. So yeah, I love the first Omen so much. I can't wait to talk about it in a full episode.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
No way.
It's
It's
fine.
excellent.
Go ahead,
It
do it. Wah, wah. It's your turn.
It's excellent.
it doesn't have Sydney Sweeney. I mean, that's strike number one. But no, I mean, like I respect it. I mean, I think part of my issue with it, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan. I know blasphemy incoming, everybody. I'm not the biggest fan of The Omen. Like, I think it's a fine movie. And maybe it's one of those films where it's of its time. Like if I saw it when it first came out, 40 odd years ago, maybe then it would be a different reaction. But I don't know, it's been so parodied and remade and imitated over the years that I don't know, for some reason I just sort of almost have a negative association when it comes to the Omen. And so that's, probably a lot of, what I'm sort of directing at this particular film. But maybe I'll give it a rewatch at some
You
point.
should definitely give it a rewatch. I grew up with The Omen, so yeah, it's special to me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Hmm. Phil, I'm gonna have to disagree. I'm on Ant's side. So number two for me is the first Omen as well.
All
The
right.
first
All right.
Omen, number
Ooh.
two.
All right.
Everything Ant said, and Phil, I will agree with you. I am not a fan of the Omen franchise, but I think what separates this movie, I mean, this movie stands on its own. It doesn't feel like a prequel, at least to me, whatsoever. And it may have had more Easter eggs than I give it credit for because I am not a huge fan of this franchise, but I feel like this was its own movie through and through until the very ending conclusion. Then obviously you get the obvious, tie-ins, but before the last 5 minutes of the movie, I mean, this movie is you don't have I feel like you don't even have to watch any of the franchise to enjoy this film. That's how great it is as a prequel movie. So we call it a prequel, but it's almost feels disingenuous to call it a prequel because it's such a great, great masterpiece in my opinion. And
Agreed.
like you said, Nail Tiger Free.
Mm.
I know she's not going to get nominated or anything because it's the horror genre and it's a little bit more of a conventional role for her as opposed to Demi Moore. I think Demi Moore has a better shot, but she just blows it out of the water. Game of Thrones fans would recognize her. She was a little bit younger. She was in Game of Thrones, and this is really like her first breakout. In terms of the silver screen, and she nails it. She goes from this innocent, girl and just some of the body performances that
Oof.
she does. I mean, we all know the scene that I'm talking about when
Oh
she's
yeah.
outside the car. It's just like, holy shit. And then also, um, again, shout out to our Arcacia Stevenson, the cinematography and the directing, as the visuals as well as the sound design. The sound design,
Hmm.
I am a sucker for super creepy audio cues in a horror movie, and that really gets under my skin when it's done right. And I think the sound design as well as the visuals in this movie really worked for me. The first time I saw this movie, I was like genuinely creeped out at some points. I was like, what the fuck is
Yeah.
going on? The one shot where it's her with the hair and it's kind of zooming out on her and she's in that weird hallway or whatever. I was just like, my mind was blown. I was like, holy fuck, like what is going on? This is awesome. They, like you said, Ant, it's Disney and it's like they're doing all this crazy shit and I loved it so much. Shout out to Ralph Ennison. He's
Hmm.
a veteran in horror. He's in a bunch of Robert Eggers movies. He's going to be in the upcoming Nosferatu, and he's awesome. He had a small little role at the beginning and the end of this movie, legendary
Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
But yeah, he this movie just worked for me so well. I'm going to agree with Ant. Sorry, Phil. It does blow Immaculate out of the water for me. Immaculate was a little bit underwhelming for me. I saw Immaculate first. And then I saw this one and I was like, this is what I wanted from Immaculate. But I do like Immaculate. I have come around on that movie, but this one is just takes it to another level for me. It just works on all cylinders, and I'm so glad it's number two for you. And I know you love this
Yes.
movie, but I'm
I've been
glad
championing this
we're
movie
in
for, I
unison.
remember telling him, like, you have to watch this, dude. You're like, all right. And then I'm
Yeah,
like,
and
yes, you.
again, I was like, the first Omen, the Omen franchise, and it looked okay. And then I watched it, and I just totally unexpected. It was so well done. Some of the scenes just I had my jaw was on the floor.
Same.
The one scene where they're in the courtyard scene. I was like, oh my
And
God.
that's where you pay homage to the original, but you want, like, you take it to the next level. I thought that was
Mm,
such a good Easter egg, but also doing something a little different. Yeah, I can gush about this movie all day, so we can move on. But yeah,
yeah.
excellent. I'm happy. I'm so happy it's your number two.
No, I respect that. I respect that. I'll
Best
stand
taste.
I'll stand on my island alone with Immaculate. It's all good. All good.
I do love Immaculate, though. I enjoyed it a little bit more than Nolan. So,
There we go. There we go. Representing.
Small
No,
win.
that's all right. I'll take it. I'll take it. All right. So number two for me is The Substance. And
okay.
I'm going to co-sign everything that you said earlier, Nolan, because this film is incredible. I mean, and that is putting it that is probably putting it, mildly. I am not a fan of body horror generally. It's one of those things where it has to be really well done, like a Cronenberg film, for example. And I mean, you said it perfectly, Anthony. This is a B horror movie. It knows it's a B horror movie, and I think that's why it succeeds so well, is that it understands what it's going for while at the same time weaving in a message that doesn't feel sort of force fed or sort of beating you over the head with it, because you certainly could have gone with that angle and it would have been fine, but I think the fact that they pair it so nicely with just the grotesque imagery and the just the I mean, just the what the fuck happens. I mean, it's just like I mean, I'm still thinking about the ending of that of the film. Like they went there, like they didn't have to go there, but I'm glad that they did. And it's a testament to, I think, both the respect for the subgenre and then also really like that's where they really powered down with what the message of this film was. But it's done in a way where it's like, yeah, okay, I get what you're going for, and I respect it wholeheartedly. But I mean, Dennis Quaid, yeah, he might be the villain of the year, with just being the sleazy, creepy, you know, like sexual predator boss. Like, I mean, he's just a complete scumbag, and he plays it perfectly. I mean, that scene in the restaurant, like, I was like physically ill watching that. I was like, oh my God, like, please just cut away. Like, that was honestly probably worse than even some of the stuff that happens in the third act. And again, there's a lot of crazy stuff, everybody, that happens in this film. Demi Moore, give her the award. Honest to God, give her the award. That scene where she's getting ready to try to go out to dinner or on the date, like
Oh,
that's the Oscar moment right there. And again, like it's one of those things, like she knows she's in a horror movie, but she's really embracing it. Like it's not like she's phoning in the performance or there's like winks and a nod. Like, yeah, the movie is campy at points, but again, it knows what it's doing. Like it's not trying to be some like
Exactly.
sophisticated,
Exactly.
highbrow commentary. There's they're having fun with this movie. I mean, Margaret Qualley, she's dynamite in anything that she's in, and this is probably one of her best performances to date. I mean, she's incredible as Sue, and I mean the scene where she and Elizabeth are going at it, in the apartment. Like, I mean, like that's that's worth the price of admission right there, folks. But then, of course, like when she begins her uh, transformation, shall we say, like it's sad, it's terrifying, it's nauseating. Like it's one of those films where you just feel every single feeling and emotion, and it just works. And I mean, maybe it shouldn't work, but I don't know. It's easily one of the best horror films of the year. But I mean, I'll go a step further. It is one of the best films of the year. I mean, I would not be surprised to see this not only get a nomination for more, but I could see it getting a Best Picture nod. Like there's a lot to pick from here, and it sort of feels weird saying it given the subtext and the plot of the film, but it is a fun movie in a way. Like it is accessible, and that's not something you can always get with a body horror film. And I feel like this one, I mean, there's a reason it's done well with audiences and critics because it's not sort of, again, highbrow or just sort of totally in your face every single frame being disgusting. Like there's that balance. And I also like that they didn't over explain the substance. Like I think
Right.
that would have sort of derailed the plot if they'd been like a whole sub plot or a background of like how the substance came into existence. Like we get that little exposition at the beginning with the egg, and then you get the ominous voice on the phone. That's all we need to know. That's all we need to know. Like I don't want to see a prequel. I don't want to see a sequel where they
Right.
explain the substance. Like again, give me more, body horror films, in this style. Sure, I'll be right there opening night. But like less is more. And I think that's again another respect for this kind of subgenre where you don't have to over explain it. Like it is what it is, and then just go with it. And damn it, this movie goes with it. So yeah, the substance, big fan of this film. I really hope it is an awards contender. Not that I really like try to get on that bandwagon too much unless we're talking about Christopher
Yeah, I'm
Nolan.
over it.
But
Yeah.
that's for another discussion. This is a film like I would definitely want to see this, in the running because it is not only is it a well-made film, the aesthetic, the set design, the music, but just from a performance level, and again, elevating the material to something that has something to say, but it's also just wacky and unsettling and terrifying all at once, which is not an easy task, especially when it comes to the horror genre.
But yeah, talk about elevating the material, and I understand why Demi Moore took this role. And I saw in interviews doing press for this that she read the script. I mean, you guys call it a B movie, but it's an A plus 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 script. The script
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
just impeccable, and I can see why someone like Demi Moore would have read this script and immediately called her agent and said, I'm on board, I'm in. So yeah, I actually, you guys talked about Demi Moore and how her Oscar moment was that getting ready scene for the date. I will agree with you that that's her. But my favorite scene of hers was when she's cooking and she's watching
Oh, it's
Sue in the
hilarious.
interview, and
Hilarious.
she's freaking out because Sue is talking to the late night host or
It's so
whatever. I mean,
funny.
that was the best scene for me for Demi Moore. That was when I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. This is so fun. And that was when it started to turn into that like campiness. It
Camp.
started to
Yeah.
flip, but it was just so brilliant. And like you said, Phil, I'm not a huge body horror guy either. The ending works so well for me, not because they had this crazy prosthetic. I mean, I expected that, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you went into this movie thinking like, okay, they're gonna think of like the most grotesque
yeah,
form of a human body they can. But not only did they have that, they had the B cheesiness with all the gore and the blood, and they had the tension too. Again,
right,
the
right.
tension was there when Sue's abomination, I'll call it, is walking to the studio and is going out on stage. I'm legit like nervous for her for the lights to come on, and I can't wait to see everyone's reaction. I'm just sitting there like sweating bullets. I couldn't wait for that reveal. And then obviously when it's revealed, I mean everything just goes bonkers. But yeah, it's just a master class in suspension, tension, acting, directing, everything. Give it all its flowers. I love it so much.
No, it's an awesome movie. I wanted to sign up for Sue's dance workout class immediately. No, I'm just kidding. But even like the script is so tight and well, there's it's so smart because that scene when they're like something pops out of Sue's butt and they have to review the monitors, they're like you think that oh my gosh, she's gonna get called out for not having the perfect body anymore, but it's really just like, oh, you're killing it. We're upgrading you to host a New Year's party. And from that moment on, you're like, oh my God, what's gonna happen on New
Yeah.
Yeah.
Year's Eve? Like, what is the embarrassment? Like, how is this gonna end? So it's just things like that. It's such a smart movie. Yeah, I have a blast with it. And I do agree with Nolan. That scene with Demi Moore cooking, I was like, felt bad for her, but I was also like rolling on the floor laughing. This is like camp. This is Camp Golden. Demi Moore, kudos to her because she was like, I'm game for all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yep. No,
Yeah.
I found myself laughing probably more times than I should have with this movie. Like again, because
but
I mean,
that's awesome.
no, again, like it's just like her cooking or like even like when like she's had like her transformation and she's like dragging across the floor,
So
just
funny.
like I don't know, just like she's in like this like long yellow coat all the time. It's just like hilarious.
Future cult classic Halloween costume that's gonna
Oh,
have
for
Yeah,
fun.
sure.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Look for that
The
next year.
new New Year, it's the new New Year's horror movie.
There we
Yeah.
go. I
Yeah,
like
there we
that.
go.
There we
Yep.
go. There we go. I like that. I like that.
Okay,
All
Ant, let's
right.
go.
All right, now
Let's
the
do it.
pressure is
Let's
on,
do
buddy.
it. Oh no.
All right. All right. Leave it to me to
Yeah.
have a sequel as my number one, but I'm not going to apologize for it. My number one horror movie of 2024 is Smile 2. I fucking love this movie so much. In 2022, Smile was my third favorite horror movie of the year, and that's only because Halloween Ends and Scream 2022 came out that year, so you're just automatically not going to beat those two for me. But Smile 2 just does everything that Smile does, but it differentiates itself, let alone you're going from a character who's works at say, a hospital to a superstar. So that's a very smart choice by Parker Finn. And it just, everything goes 20 times more over the top in Smile 2, which it should when you're dealing with a superstar versus Sosie Bacon's character. I actually slightly prefer Smile, the first one, just because it is contained and I could relate to that character more. But Smile 2, talk about performances. In my opinion, Naomi Scott's performance is my favorite performance of the entire year. Horror, not horror alone. She just absolutely slaughters this role. And again, Parker Finn, he is the horror director now that the new horror director that I'm looking out for what he does next because he is two for two. And these are mainstream horror movies, but they are mean and they are dark and they are bloody. But with Smile 2 specifically, it's also like I found myself like laughing and it has this humorous moment. So I think he blended everything so well. I mean, and talk about movies with messages. This movie, again, first and foremost, it just wants to scare the shit out of you and have you giggle and laugh and be entertained on the edge of your seat. But it's also pretty deep. There's a line in the movie where Naomi Scott's character says to someone, she's like, I wish you could feel what it's like having to live inside my head. And talk about deep. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but that line cut deep for me, and I just think like, whoa, that's some crazy shit for a movie about people smiling. I'm like, holy crap. But I mean, Parker Finn, Naomi Scott, it has some of the best horror set pieces of the year. I think it has the best. Jump scares. I love them so much if they're executed great. And to me, I haven't. I mean, I'm desensitized, but when I saw this in the theater, there's one scene where I think I like yelped and I jumped out of my seat. I'm like, holy shit, they got me, these motherfuckers. I'm like, what's going on? But I just think that and talk about the opening scene alone, again, one of my favorite opening scenes of the year is Smile 2. It could be a short horror movie in and of itself. With Kyle Gallner, again, another horror vet who doesn't get enough credit. But I just think that Parker Finn knows this world so well, and he just upped it a notch to the point where it's like it's over the top, but it's still scary. And I think there was no other way to end it other than it did, and it gets super campy, but I'm like, yes, go there, do it. That's where I want a sequel to go. It's bigger, it's crazier, and it's just so messed up. And you have it all led by Naomi Scott, who is, I don't know how the hell she did what she did in this movie. I mean, girl, I hope she took a vacation and went to some spas after the filming because she has to go to places where it's like, whoa. And it's also a complex character because she's really, when you especially go to some flashbacks, she's not a great person, but she's just trying to do what she can a year later after she went through some crazy shit and she's trying to be better. So it's almost like you're following a character who is more moral ambiguity than Sosie Bacon's character in the first one because she really is just trying to do the right thing. Sosie Bacon and Naomi Scott, she has some demons and she's, kind of a complex character. That's why I love it. It just fits so well with her being a superstar. And then also, some things I see people complain about, you don't know what's really happening and what's not. But I think Smile 2 just fucks with you so much where it's like, holy shit. By the end of it, it's like he's fooling you every time. You're like, oh, I'm not gonna fall for it. And then you fall for it again, where it's like, oh, that didn't really happen. That did happen. I'm like, damn, he's killing it. It's just this movie's awesome. It's one of my favorite one-two punches of mainstream horror of the last few years because it's not afraid to go there. And this movie is rated R with a capital R. I mean, there's some kills and some violence. I mean, the opening, the wait scene, I'm like, they're holding on that real long. People were like, ugh, ugh, in the theater. And just to talk about the theater experience, it's just so good to see a horror movie like this in the theater because the audience was absolutely thriving, screaming, laughing on the edge of their seat. At the end of the movie, a guy came up to me and was like, yo, that was some crazy awesome shit. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's what I want from a movie like this. So that solidified it. When that guy came up to him, like, this is my favorite horror movie of the year. So yeah, Smile 2 is my favorite horror movie of the year. I love it so much, and I can't wait for Smile 3 and also to see what Parker Finn does outside of their franchise because he's obviously a horror voice to keep an eye on.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. This is a great movie. Parker Finn, like you said, he toes that line of that mainstream horror, which is super accessible. I mean, these two movies made a ton at the box office, but it's also really mean, and it's, like you said, it's R rated with a capital R. So I think he balances that perfectly. This is so well done. I will say it's not perfect, but I think I like it a little more than the first one. They're like
Mhm.
very neck and neck for me
They're
because, like you said,
consistent.
and they are consistent, but we get stuff in the first one that we don't in the second, and vice versa. The first one's a little more contained, and I would say the first one is definitely more morbid and darker than this second
Mhm.
one, but they're both mean for
Mm.
sure. I love this one. Sky Riley, the pop
Oh,
star diva that she is.
love her.
I need to this soundtrack and this best original score or original song to be nominated because some of those songs in the movie I was like bopping my head to. I was like, damn, she is awesome. So it's awesome that they got Naomi Campbell. Obviously, she's got the musical background to pull this off. But like you said, she also goes places. I mean, the one scene where she does the total freak out, and she's just like yelling almost into the camera. You're like into
Hmm.
like to the audience. I was like, oh my God, give her all the awards as well. I might agree with you, and this might be my favorite performance of 2024 as well. I mean, she carries the movie. I mean, she is why the movie works so well. If you would have told me before I saw this movie or before I saw any trailers, like, they're doing a Smile 2 and it's going to be like this pop star and it's going to
Right.
explore that. I'd be like, wait, what? Why are they going there? Like, why don't they keep it more like the first one? But now that I've seen the movie, it was a brilliant decision. Kudos to Parker Finn, who did he write it as well? Was
Yes, he did.
his name's all over this? So
He's
kudos
all
to
over
him
this.
to write this big bold script, and to get Naomi Scott to do this performance because without her it would have kind of, I think, fell apart. But she just brings it all together. And again, shout out to, like you said, shout out to Kyle Gallner.
Mm.
He's awesome. I feel so bad for Joel. He was such a cool character in the first one, and we all knew he was going to get it in this one. But
Yeah.
that opening scene is so expertly done. I personally want them to do a movie for Joel. I don't really know how they can make
Like
a
an in-between
sequel.
movie? Okay.
Yeah, I don't really like a Smile 3 that takes place after this movie. I don't really know
Mm.
if that's going to work because you have the ending to this one, not to spoil too much, but a lot of people get affected. So I don't even know where it will go from here if they're just going to focus on maybe one or two people from that. But I would personally like to see an in-betweener movie with Joel because I believe it was one full week they
Yeah,
said
6 days.
before,
Six
6 days.
days. Yep.
Yeah, okay, 6 days. So they could definitely make a movie out of that. That would be really cool. And I think Kyle Gallner deserves it because he's been in horror for so long. And shout out to another movie he was in this year. He's been killing it, Strange Darling. We
Mm.
haven't talked about that, but that's
Great
definitely going to be
movie.
somewhere on my list or in honorable mentions for my end of the year list for sure. It didn't make my top four, but it was a really, really cool movie as well. But yeah, Ray Nicholson is in this movie. The son of late great Jack, and he just
He's knows how to smile. And the homage to Jack Nicholson in that car. Oh my
he's
God.
just
He's his dad.
I don't have any words. Yeah, he's literally his dad. I mean, that
Oh,
scene is
it's
probably my favorite scene in the whole movie, where she's giving the speech at the gala or at the charity event. You have so many things at
so messed
play.
up.
It's so tension filled. You have just like the little subtle things where how she messes up her makeup right before she goes on stage. That gives you like this uneasy feeling. It's like, girl, fix your face, and it's so brilliantly done. And then you have obviously Ray Nicholson, who just kills it with that smile. I do think it does get a little astray with some of the, I guess I'll call them smilers. There were a lot of them in this movie, particularly the apartment scene when
Which one?
the with all the backup dancers
Oh,
when
I
they're
love that
all.
scene.
It was good, but my problem was not everyone in that scene was creepy. It takes a special person to do a creepy smile, and I think that's what one nailed expertly. Every smile in the first one was like super creepy because they got the right actors to do it. I
A
feel like
little
in this
smaller,
one,
yeah.
not everyone was as creepy. I was noticing some they just looked like normal people smiling, and it kind of took me out of it a little bit. So, but that's going to happen when you have
Dude.
a much larger scope. So
Mhm.
I kind of give it a pass, but yeah, I do really adore this movie. I can't wait for us to cover it. This was our first ever
Yeah.
episode. We covered the original Smile, so that's going to be a fun one to cover.
Special.
And
Special
yeah, like you said,
franchise for
it's a
us.
it's a good 1-2 punch. I can't wait for them to do the third one.
It's so well directed. So well directed. Oh my God.
I have to say, because I was not a fan of the first film. Like
Oh, I love it.
it was okay. Like I guess that would be putting it nicely. This one I enjoyed much more, and I don't know if it's just the change in the story. Like again, I was with you, Nolan. I wasn't sure. Okay, pop star. Like okay, what are we doing here? But I mean, Naomi Scott, dear God, I mean, this is another tour de force performance in the horror genre this year. Like I was just like riveted from beginning to end. So I have I'm not ready to change my take on the first film, but
Love the first.
this one definitely made me sit up and take notice. So maybe a rewatch of Smile One is in my future, but
Hell yeah.
I'm definitely I can see what all the fuss is about. That's what I will say.
Okay. All right, here
All
we
right, let's
go.
hear it.
All
My
right,
number
Nolan,
one.
let's hear number one.
I'm going in
I
a
don't know what
different
it's gonna be.
direction. I'm going with original horror for my number one. It was so the first Omen was my number one for the longest time this year, obviously because it came out earlier in the year, but this was a later release, and this is one that really, really worked for me. It's an original horror. So I gotta give it
Oh, I
credit.
know
I
what it
gotta
is.
I gotta put it at my number one. It is Oddity,
Oh,
Good
directed
movie.
by Damian McCarthy. Oh man. Oh, I wish I could go back a few weeks and watch this for the first time again. Talk about creepy. This movie, I was home alone. I had all the lights out. I had the sound up, and this movie really, really worked for me. I mean, it legitimately creeped me out at times, and it had me. audibly shouting at the screen. And that's how tension filled it was for me. I mean, for some reason, it just worked. Again, shout out Damian McCarthy. You have it's an Irish film, so you don't have like super A-list actors. The lead is Carolyn Brecken. She does an amazing job as the lead. You also have who is it? Tig Murphy. You'll know from I think Vikings. He was in that show Vikings. He's the guy with the fake eye. He's always like super creepy with his look, his unique look. But yeah, small cast, but talk about a cool concept, original concept with the whole haunted items theme and the Wicker Man, if you will. Just was so cool, so cool. The writing was good enough to where it kind of I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I didn't really know the angle that our main Danny was taking. I knew she had some connection to the spirit world in a way, but it was enough of a mystery for me to really make me question what was going on. I thought the suspense, like I said, was brilliant, 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 and this one really stuck with me. I'm gonna watch this on repeat for years to come. The lighting, the sound, the shots, the cinematography, the way they work with dark lighting is awesome. Again, it's super suspenseful. If you guys haven't seen this, this is definitely to me the scariest, like straight up scariest movie of the year. Watch it with the lights out. I had to put an original scary, like legitimate scary movie at my number one. I couldn't leave it at number two. I was debating for a while, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I got to give it its props, give it its kudos. It really, really impressed me, and I'm so happy I was able to get around to this one because it was on my watch list for a while, and I finally got around to it. And oh my gosh, it just catapulted up my list. And yeah, it's sitting at number one. I don't know if it's going to be there for long. Nosferatu's coming out soon, and that might give it a run for its money. But for now, yeah, Oddity was really, really just a perfect film, and I can't wait, Anthony, to talk about this one
Yeah,
more with
for
you.
sure.
And I know you enjoyed it as well. You actually, I told
I
you I
did.
hadn't watched it yet, and you told me to watch it that it was a creepy movie, and I'm so glad I did. This is just such a cool, tight script, like I said, original concept, and it really struck a nerve with me. It really creeped me out.
There's
Oh,
also one jump scare in this movie that got me as well.
Mm,
Um,
thank you. Yeah, I forgot to talk about that jump scare at the beginning, right? In the
yes.
beginning with the tent scene. Oh my gosh, talk about
Yeah,
starting with a
I
bang.
jumped
That
on my
opening
couch.
sequence. Yes, I jumped. I jumped as well. I jumped as well. And then at the end, like I said, when you have the chase scene at the end, I'm literally yelling at the screen. And it's funny because you don't really have the typical conventional, final girl
Mhm.
hero that's
no.
being chased. It's kind of almost it's the bad guy. I'm not to give away too much, but it's the bad guy of the film, but you're still yelling at the screen. It's so beautifully done. I love it. I love, love, love it so much.
Well, you said it. The concept of this movie is what makes it. It's an original concept, but it also has what you come to expect from like a supernatural, creepy ghost, whatever kind of supernatural story. But I will say there's nothing like watching this movie for the first time. So I've watched it the second time, like it's awesome, but there's nothing like that first time watch with this one. But it's a
Yeah.
great movie. It's a good pick. I like that it's your number one.
No, I would just say to anybody listening or watching, if you haven't seen this film, go watch it
Mhm.
first off, but also
Shudder.
do not look anything up. Go
Mhm.
in it completely blind because this is one of those movies where you are going to be sitting there saying, "What the fuck?" Like it is that good. And I'm with you, Nolan. I think it is probably no, it is the most terrifying film of the year. It is
Cool. Nice. Nice.
it is unnerving,
Yeah.
and it's creepy. It has that old school charm and atmosphere that you don't get from a lot of modern horror movies. This one felt like it was almost a time capsule to another era, and maybe because of the Irish influence, I don't. That might have something
I
to
think so.
do
I
with
think
it.
it's a little less Hollywood. So it's a
Yeah,
little, yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
the convention is kind of out the window, but yeah, I'm with you. This is a damn good movie, and it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. So I'm with you there. But yeah, people, if you have not seen it, go watch Oddity because you will not be disappointed. And again, take Nolan's advice, watch it with the lights off. And
Watch every horror movie with the lights
well,
off, people.
honestly,
Come on.
yes, actually,
Yeah.
yes. What do we say here? My God,
No
I gotta.
distractions though, no phones. Don't
No,
put your phone
thank
away.
you.
Just kind of
Put the
get your
damn
popcorn
phone.
and
Yeah, put
yep.
the damn phone down. Thank you. There we go. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. There we go. Yeah. No, I won't get on that
It's
soapbox
not a sing
today.
along like Wicked,
No,
so
we're
that's
that's right. That's right. No, don't sing along.
No, wicked.
The no, when you made a mention because we are recording this episode about 3.5 weeks before Nosferatu, and yeah, I don't want to speak for either of you, but this remains my most other anticipated film of the year. I'm hoping it will go a lot better than what was my most anticipated film of the year. But you
Don't
can't.
jinx it.
Yeah, I know exactly. I'm not. I shall not speak its name
it's
because
Robert Eggers. You're not gonna jinx it.
that that
He's just
that's the thing.
he's gonna after this movie. I'm confident that I'm not jinxing anything. He's gonna be my favorite working horror director. I think after this movie. I mean,
Really?
he nails it. You know me. I love his
Yeah.
first three
He
movies
does it.
so much.
He does not miss. I
He
will say
doesn't.
he
No, he
doesn't
doesn't.
miss. And again, he may not be necessarily everybody's like go-to director. Like I know some people have mixed feelings when it comes to The Lighthouse, for example,
Mhm.
or the Witch. But I think he is. I, I'm with you, Noah. I think he is one of the best working in the genre today, and I can't wait to see Nosferatu. So
He's
again,
great. I mean, he stays in his lane with the period pieces, but
yeah,
everything is different from each other. I
that's right.
mean, people who love The Witch might not love The Northman, and
Right.
people who love The
Right.
Northman are probably not going to love The Lighthouse. But I personally love all three
Yeah.
because I just love his style and everything. So yeah, I'm. This is probably going to be my number one. Not
No,
to,
again,
I think
the
yeah.
list hasn't been made, I guess, truly final yet. Check back December 31st, everybody.
I think that might be my favorite Eggers movie after it comes. It's my vibe. It looks like the most my vibe out of
Yeah,
his
yeah.
movies so far. But I will say, people go in for the movie. Don't. There's a lot of hype right now, and I love the
Right.
hype, and I'm excited. But don't. I mean, I've already seen it's the scariest movie of the year. I'm like, come on, let's just go in
Oh,
trying to
I
have
don't.
it. Yeah, I
No,
hate
that,
that.
Yeah.
that's all
Just
marketing
it's gonna
BS.
be one
Yeah.
of the most well-directed movies, but stuff like that
Well,
is
I
too
even
like
so
people just
wanted.
getting
Someone
clicks.
said it
Yeah,
was the scariest movie since The Shining, and
it's
but
like,
there have been scarier movies than The Shining since The Shining, so
oh,
that
it's
doesn't even
just
make
like
sense, you know. So
Yeah, that was a
yeah,
weird take. That's
yeah,
all
you saw that,
that.
right? I was
clickbaity.
like,
It's
Yeah.
very
that's you're
clickbaity.
really going back a
Yeah,
ways,
wow, okay.
yeah,
Nothing has happened since 1980.
yeah,
Okay. All right,
exactly.
But
perfect.
I'm
Thank
the
you.
most excited for this one out of all of his movies so far, so I can't wait. I can't
Yes,
wait.
yes,
No.
and it's a passion project for him too. It's been in
Yeah.
development for almost 10 years, so that just
Yeah.
goes to show
And
you.
Bill
Yeah,
Skarsgård in horror. I mean, come on.
yes, everything. Yep,
That's it. You can't go wrong. Like
William
that's the thing.
Dafoe.
Willem
Yeah,
Dafoe.
yeah,
I mean, come
yep.
on. Like
Yeah.
this, you can't go wrong
Yeah.
here.
All right,
But
Phil, let's get
yeah,
to it.
yeah. So
I know,
this,
Phil.
Drum roll.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know. There's no
Shocker.
dramatic, no surprise here, buddy. It is Long Legs. I have talked about this film. I have gushed about this film. You know, I am probably Micah Monroe is my favorite actor working in the horror genre.
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Hell yeah.
she is the modern scream queen,
She is.
final girl, and I love that she has stayed with the genre. A lot of actors get their start and then they move on and then maybe they come back or they just leave it entirely. She has stayed with it from the beginning. And again, she's a phenomenal actress because even if she's in a film like Long Legs or The Watcher from a couple of years ago or a significant other. Like she brings something new and different to each role she plays,
Mhm.
even when she's still working in the same proverbial sandbox. This is, I think, my favorite of her roles and work thus far. I think she really found and created a character that I mean, certainly draws inspiration from uh, Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling, but she makes it her own as only Micah Monroe can. Like, I really would have a hard time imagining another actress in this role. Just her her quirkiness, her sort of awkward nature. It's such a fascinating performance. And sort of you pair that off of her relationship or lack thereof with her mother, played just impeccably by Alicia Witt. I mean, it's
Hmm.
such like that in and of itself, their dynamic. You could have made an entire 2 hour horror movie just on that alone. But then you sprinkle in the mystery. You throw in Nicolas Cage, who is unrecognizable. I mean, again, I know Nicolas Cage can be an acquired taste for people. This is not a Nicolas Cage performance, if that makes any sense. Like it's not Nicolas Cage doing his shtick, so to speak. Like he's long legs, you know. He's you know Mr. Bickle. Like he's this weird psychotic, somewhat satanically obsessed guy who's I mean clearly had a lot go wrong, but I mean it's unlike anything Cage has done in a long time. That I mean I think it's probably his best work since Pig. I mean it's just sort of a he's all there, he's all in it, but he's not overpowering. Like I think you're right. This is the kind of character you don't want to see 2 hours and 30 minutes of. Like he's in it just enough to create that suspense and mystery. And of course, it builds right to that great scene between him and her in the interrogation room, where of course, you know, starts dropping some truth and you know, well, I mean, again, I won't spoil it in case anyone hasn't seen it because it is one of those moments where I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, they actually went there with it. So, yeah, this movie from the vibes it puts out, just in terms of atmosphere. Like for me, with a horror film, I'm all about the atmosphere. And this movie is creepy. It is unsettling.
So heavy.
Yeah, I love that it is set sort of like in the, waning days of fall, onset of winter. Everything just looks dead and morose. And again, tip to Oz Perkins because he really is firing on all cylinders with this film. I said it earlier, I think it is his most accessible film for mainstream audiences. I mean, I've loved everything that he's done up until this point, but
Hmm.
this one really does feel like he's working with a lot of familiar you know tropes and trappings of the genre to make something that feels akin to Silence of the Lambs or Seven even, but with a dash of satanic panic. Like that's I think the element that I really dig the most from this film because the way it is marketed, you think it's basically an updated version of Seven or Silence of the Lamb. It's very much a serial killer, toying with the cops motif. And that's obviously there, but it's so much deeper than that. You add the layers with sort of the religious subtext, you add the layers with sort of devil worship and black magic, all of course leading to the third act, which I think is one of my favorite third acts of any film this year. I just love the way everything sort of gets turned from up until this point. Lee Harker is she's sort of in control, but she's not really, like she's starting to like maintain a grip, but then like when everything gets turned around, of course, when she goes to the back to her childhood home. And I mean there's that scene that it's been replayed on the posters, and I mean it's been all over social media where of course she's looking out the window and she has that
Hmm.
shocked reaction, like everything like she thought she knew is completely inverted at this point. And again, just I mean Blair Underwood, he's phenomenal in it. I just love this movie, and I ultimately, I could go on, and I did, for an episode just sort of picking apart every point in the best possible way. But looking at this year, there's been so many great horror films. Like this one it resonated. Like I remember sitting there opening night, and again the marketing is sort of building it up as this the scariest movie since whatever. And
Right.
is it the scariest movie ever made? No, of course not. That's all marketing BS. But just sort of the event that was this movie, and then seeing it, it was a packed theater. Again, you laugh at moments you maybe shouldn't. You kind of are on the edge of your seat at others. And I mean, heck, it's Micah Monroe in yet another great horror film. and she's just killing it. She's just killing it. Nicolas Cage is firing on all cylinders, and I really like how this film ends on such an ominous note. Like again, you could debate what happens, what happens next, but it's not all sunshine and roses, and it's very much in keeping with the whole tone of this film, which is dark, somber, but it's not sort of like overbearing, if that makes sense. Like it's the right balance that, there's sort of that, again, it's the accessibility while also delivering some heavy heavy material that it stays with you. And again, I mean, I've had debates with people about like what do we think happened with with the ending here, and is there, is it really all devil worship, or is there something else going on? And I love that with a horror film where you can sort of debate what happened, and sort of look for all the little clues along the way. I mean, this is a movie that I've rewatched, probably more times than I should at this point, but I mean, what can I say? It's it's great. It's just it's a fun, scary movie.
Like you said, it does balance it so perfectly because this is a slow burn. I mean,
Hmm.
guys, if you haven't watched this movie, we are comparing it to Silence of the Lambs, but it is a slow burn. I love how held back Longlegs is as a
Yeah.
character. I mean, the movie is called Long Legs. All of the marketing, leading up to it, we knew that Nicolas Cage was going to play the villain, so you expected that him to be front and center, but he's not, and he's not even really toying with the police. His
Mm-mm.
character is not. His character is just deranged, and he is basically just essentially a conduit for the events that are to come at the end of the movie, and that's what makes his character, I think, so unique and
Mm.
so brilliant because he's not this like mastermind that's
He's not
toying with
Lecter.
Lee Harker. Yeah, he's not Lecter at all.
Yeah.
We do the comparisons, but he's his own character, and he's kind of just at the station, just kind of hanging out and chilling, and he's not really trying to do anything other than just be long legs, and he's got his singing parts and everything, and it's
Let
yeah,
me in now.
let me in, and
So
we could be
good.
nice, yeah.
I was dying. But
Yeah.
I just want to shout out. We shout out everyone, but Kiernan Shipka has one
Oh,
scene in this movie,
Oh yeah.
and
yeah.
I thought she was aces. I mean, if he told me to take a jumpy off the balcony, I'd surely do. I was like fucking dying. He's like, "You dirty, flirty old angel bitch." That's my favorite line in the movie. And her delivery. She has one scene. I'm like, yo, she stuck with me. She killed it. So I just want to shout her out too. But yeah, this is fitting, man. I mean, hail Satan. Let's end on
Hail,
that.
Hail
hail,
Hell
Satan.
yeah.
say,
And
Amen.
just you guys both commented on Micah Monroe. We talk about modern day scream queens in the horror genre, and you can certainly
Jeez.
have your favorite. We talked about Catherine Newton, and you have a couple others, but I think what differentiates Micah Monroe from those is because of the roles she's taking. I mean,
Mhm.
she's taking these very serious, not to sound too percentage pretentious, but these are more grounded, scarier, darker roles than these other scream queens who are taking more, kind of fun roles in slashers and stuff. Meanwhile, Micah is just killing it doing these serious roles, and I think that's kind of what elevates her above the rest of the other, modern scream queens right now. And I think I'll agree with you too. I think she's definitely
Jeez,
the best and the front runner right now for me as well. And I can't wait to see what she does next. I know we got They Follow coming out, I believe next year. Is it next year?
I
Or
want to say
I
it's next
believe they're
year.
filming it like next. They're filming it like in January, so I
yeah,
hope we'll
so
see.
maybe the end of next year. That's
Yeah.
going to be really
She's
fun.
also
So,
got the Hand That Rocks the Cradle
Right.
remake. She's gonna be in
Yeah.
that.
mhm.
I mean, and talk about she just did another. I mean, back to back between Watcher and this. I'm like, who watch Watcher if you haven't watched that.
Yeah,
Oh,
Ooh, Final Girl,
that's
awesomeness.
like you said, Phil,
fantastic.
every role that she's done is different. I mean, she
Yeah.
doesn't have like her lane and she sticks to it. She just transforms into these different characters, and it's you buy it every single time. She is so, so, so good at what
Mhm.
she does.
No, she's the best that's doing it right now. Absolutely. I can't wait to see what she does next. I think she's doing a vampire movie of some kind. I
Yeah,
think I
she's
saw
sticking with
something.
us. I
Yeah.
love it.
No, hey,
Yep.
like I said, I
That's
love
where
it
the
when,
money
but
is. It's
hey,
the most
again,
dependable.
Yes, it is. Don't forget it.
horror is never going anywhere. It's been there from the dawn of cinema and will be here until the very end,
Yeah.
which is fine by me. Amen to that. But gentlemen, We have done it. We have ranked our four favorite films of the year. So Anthony, if you want to start it off, give us your top four again for everybody.
All right. My number four is Terrifier 3. My number three is Longlegs. My number two is The First Omen. And my number one is Smile 2.
Cool, cool. I think Ant, you might have the most maybe conventional top four that people will agree with more. I think your
We'll
picks are
see.
very popular picks.
Mm.
My top four, my number four was Lisa Frankenstein. Number three, The Substance. Number two, The First Omen as well. And number one is
Woo.
Oddity. Everyone go watch Oddity if you haven't seen it yet.
And I will co-sign that again. Please go watch Oddity, everybody. You will not be disappointed. My top four: number four, Late Night with the Devil. Three is Heretic. Two, The Substance, and of course, number one, Long Legs. So there we have it,
I
everybody.
Hail
love I
Satan.
love that
Hail Satan!
I love that Heretic made your top four.
I
That's
love
awesome. Yeah, I
Heretic so
love it so
much.
much.
Oh,
I can't wait to watch it again.
Oh, same. It was just, it was perfect. Absolutely
not to
perfect.
put you on the spot, but do you guys have a most anticipated of 25? Do you even know what's coming out in 25 or
You know,
Um, I forget. I'm blanking. I
I
do
mean, my
have a
baby,
few.
I know what you did last summer is coming back. So,
oh,
you
that's
know
right.
me,
That's next year.
90s,
That's
90s kid.
right.
I'm excited for that one.
Can't go wrong with that. Now, I will definitely see that. I'm really looking forward to The Monkey, which is Oz Perkins'
Yes, that
next
looks all
film.
get Osgood Perkins.
Yeah, so like, yeah, again,
We
I've
also have Thanksgiving 2
that's
coming
right.
out
That's right.
and
Yeah, I'm looking forward to
a
that
new
one.
Final Destination movie. That's also one of my favorite franchises. So we have some fun options coming up.
Mhm.
If we get a
Megan too. I
oh,
love
that's
the
right.
first
That's
Megan.
coming. That's
Yeah.
right. Megan 2 is
Nolan and
coming
his
out.
Megan.
You stand Megan.
Saw 11 if that comes out next
Oh,
year.
that's right. Okay,
That's
that's
gonna be
right.
my
That's gonna
favorite.
be
Yeah.
up there for you.
Yeah,
It's
that's gonna
supposed
be
to.
up
We'll
there.
see.
Definitely my most anticipated. So yeah.
Yeah, if we get a confirmation on They Follow, that will take number one for me.
Yeah, mine
But
definitely is. I'm happy that we have confirmation for I Know You Did Last Summer. Just we need to get Jennifer Love Hewitt confirmed, and then I'll really be excited.
I thought she was confirmed.
She's in it, but it's not there. She's is, but it's not an official. You know how they do that.
Oh
All that,
yeah, they have
just
to. Yeah,
like
of course.
Patrick Dempsey's not in Scream 7, but he's in Scream 7. I mean, come on.
Right, sure. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, it's gonna be a good mix of original and franchise again, which makes the horror genre thrive.
Oh, amen to that. Is it a requel or is it a like
It's
how
a
are they?
Legacy
legacy.
sequel.
No,
Yeah.
they're following us. So it's I know they're following us to know what you do last summer, so they're not erasing anything
Oh,
Okay.
with
they're not. I thought
Halloween.
they were.
Okay.
No, they're not,
Okay.
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
Maybe I saw a
which makes
false
me
report
happy.
then.
Yeah, no,
Got to
they're
be
not.
careful.
A
28
lot of
years
liars
later.
on Twitter and
28
YouTube.
years
Yeah.
later. That's going to be a good one.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
that's
that's
right.
coming out too.
That's
Cillian
right.
They filmed
Murphy.
that on an
Yeah.
iPhone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy.
Interesting.
Again, folks, as I have said before on this show many times, horror is the most bankable genre. Do not underestimate it. Yet every year it seems there are these articles written where people say, "Oh, horror is dead," or "Who knew horror was still alive?" Horror is always here, folks. It's not going
Or what
anywhere.
about every weekend horror's back? I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know.
it's always
I
back.
love those. I love those posts. Those are
Or
the
the one
best.
I'm
that
like,
said
come
that
on.
horror isn't sustainable and it's going to fall
Well,
off a
it's
cliff. Like,
the only
have you
one
been
that
paying
is
attention?
sustainable.
I know. I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, they were trying to say it's like the comic book genre. It's like, really, folks, come on.
No.
Let's stop.
Yeah.
Let's be serious here. Let's not do clickbait for once. But I guess articles have to be written and money has to be made. But what can you do? Gentlemen, this was an absolute blast. I am glad that we have now made this a second year in a row, talking about some of our favorite horror films of the year. Before I let you go, tell everybody listening or watching where they can stalk you on social media in the best possible way. Anthony, where can folks find you?
Find us all, Never Split Up Pod. You guys, we're on social media, YouTube, like Nolan said, we're really trying to get to 200 subscribers by the end of the year. We have about a month left. I don't know what. It's November 25th we're recording this. I don't know when you're coming out. So hopefully that we're at that 200 mark by the time this episode comes out. But please, guys, if you can just share with your friends, anyone who loves horror, we have a good time. And we're going to have Phil on a bunch more. We're going to have a lot of exciting things for next year. So yeah, come join the fun.
And Nolan, where can folks find you?
Oh yeah, I mean you can find us individually on X as well at Movie Nolo if you want to follow my personal account. Ant has his own personal account as well. But just follow us on at Never Split Up Pod. Like Ant said, you can find our handles on the bio there, and we run polls almost weekly. So with the kind of the premise of our show, it's called Never Split Up. We have a Never Split Up moment when we cover these movies, and it's kind of just we each pick a dumb moment that a character makes, and then we have all of our fans vote on which moment they agree with more that they think is the dumbest moment. And it's just a lot of fun. We have a fun time. It's a long form podcast. We just have fun just chatting as lifelong best friends and talking about our favorite genre. And yeah, come join the fun. We have a ton of fun. We can't wait to have you back on, Phil.
No, I always enjoy talking with you guys, so I definitely look forward to that. And again, I please, folks, if you are a fan of the genre, give these guys a follow because they really are killing it. And I mean that in the best way. Your stuff is always entertaining and just your back and forth banter is it's always amusing, particularly when you're on opposite sides of
Yes.
the fence.
We've known
That's
each
what
other
Episodes.
since
that's what
elementary
it's
school,
really
so
that's
I
what
think that's what gives us that extra layer
yeah.
because we do bicker and go at each other, but
Yeah.
it's all fun. It's all
No,
love
it's
between
all
us.
good. No, it's all good. No, it just
Yeah.
definitely makes for good entertainment. But on that note, everyone, thank you as always for tuning in each and every Friday, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or watching the show on YouTube. That does it for now. Of course, let me know your top four favorite horror films of the year. Do you agree with our list? I'll put out a poll question, and I'll be curious to see what the responses are. Whose list do you agree with the most? Anthony, Nolan, or yours truly? Again, I'm expecting my list to run away with it. No, probably not. Probably not. If anything, I'm used to being the outlier when it comes to certain takes. But in all seriousness, everybody, thank you again. I'll be back next week with a kind of a closeout almost to the year, ranking top favorite films of the year. So that will be a fun time to be had by all. But until then, everybody, be well, stay safe, and we'll do this all over again for the love of movies.